Kumlen and Ablat Gemara. We are up to the Tzadik Vav Amad Aleph. This is the Gemara for the first day of Yom Tov of Sukkot. We'll begin actually from the beginning of the Pedic, which is Tzadik Hey on the base on the bottom of the page. The Gemara says, Almona. We already had this Gemara before. The widow, she sort of has an option either to get her ksuva and to leave, or she can remain in the family household until she gets remarried. And we had a whole bunch of discussions if she was going out and she got married and divorced, what happens? And she can remain there and get provided for from the estate till she takes her ksuva. So almona nezainis menichse yisaimim, she gets provided for from the assets of the yisaimim. Maisi yedeh shalahen. So in return, any earnings that she makes should go to them. Just like with a husband, we said, that her earnings go to the husband, he provides for her. The same thing with the orphans. They provide for her and she gives them the earnings. But they don't have to pay for the funds for her burial, and that is because that comes for in exchange of the ksuva. If she passes away first, the husband yashins the ksuva, so then in return he has to pay for her funeral. But in this case, the orphans don't yashin. The orphans of the husband's estate from another wife, they don't yashin the ksuva, only her own children. Therefore, her own children are the ones who have to pay for the funeral, not the estate. Her own children are the ones who pay for the ksuva. We have a question here. Whose choice is it that if she can remain on and stay as long as she wants and get provided for from the estate rather than take her ksuva? Is it talking about? Are we saying here nizainis that up to her how long she wants to get provided for, or han nizainis? It happens to be that she is being provided for because really it's not up to her; it's up to the children. Tanan, we learned, and the question is as follows: Do we say nizainis tanan that chatchila she's go ahead and she can remain as long as she wants? Uka anchi galil, like the people in Galil, because they used to write nixula that you can remain here in the house and get provided for from the state as long as you are a widow. And the children have absolutely no choice; they have to provide for her. Or Dilma Hanizainis, or perhaps this Mishnah says Hanizainis happens to be that she's being provided for because of Ka'ansha Yehuda. It's like the people in Yehuda, they would write in the Ksula that she can remain in the state and get provided for from the state as long as the heirs agree to it, consent to it. If they want, they can terminate that arrangement, give her the Ksula and pay her out. So therefore it's Hanizainis. The Iboy Loyav, that's up to the children whether they want to give her it or not. Which way should we learn our Mishnah? Talk about here. Amar Abzeda, Amar Shmuel. Abzeda's name is Shmuel. Metzias Almona La'atzel. He said in the Shmuel that when Almona finds a product, she can keep it. Now remember, while she's married to the husband, whatever she finds goes to the husband. But here we're saying now she passed on to the Yisaimim. Her earnings go to the Yisaimim, but her findings go to herself. Now why? Yeah, maybe you can tell me what really it's not up to her at all to remain there. It's up to the children. They decide to let her stay at the shop. It makes sense. So they don't really own her. They don't, because they can throw her out wherever they want. So therefore, anything that she finds, she can keep. And why? Because maybe it's talking about a case where they're not feeding her. Maybe it's talking about a case where they're not providing for her. Because it's up to the children, and therefore the material of Almana keeps. They're talking about where the children decide not to provide for her, but if they do, maybe she does have to give them a tzir. Why should they be different than the husband? The Yamin is going to learn that it's that it's her decision, and therefore she will always obviously that she is being provided for, and the children have absolutely no choice. Yes, to provide, not to provide, it's totally up to her. So obviously she's being provided for. So why doesn't her tzir go to them? They have a kabbalah. Let the Yisayim not be treated like a husband. Mabal Metzias Ishal Bayis. That's why a husband. The Tzia goes to the husband. There shouldn't it didn't be here the same thing. That we should legislate that anything that she finds should go over to the children, just like by the husband. Because the children have no choice, so therefore they're just like the husband. Layla was no. I tell you, the Zayn is talking about that she's provided for and they have no choice, and yet she can keep the mitzvah for herself. Why? Mitzvah is different than wages. Wages is a steady income. It goes to the husband. It's only fair. He provides. She brings in whatever wage she brings in. She puts. She contributes. Fine, makes sense. Mitzvah is something that could be will happen, could be won't happen. Why does it go to the husband at all? So that's something he relied on. So why should it go to the husband? The only reason why it should go to the husband is because otherwise he'll be upset. I'm working so hard. I'm taking care of you. And if you find something, you should put it back into the general revenue. The husband will get upset. Otherwise, it'll create some kind of a wedge between the two. The late Tevla, we don't want that to have any enmity between the two. Hani Tevla, when it comes to children, what kind of relationship do they have? You think children want to give her? Children have no choice. They can't divorce her. They have no choice. It's up to her if you follow Anshe Galil. So therefore, who cares if they're upset? We don't care. And she found it by law, it's hers. So why should we take it away from her? So now we're talking about the arrangement that there is between the Salmana and the Yisraelim, all the kinds of house chores that the wife has to do for her husband, she should do for the general household as well. Since they're providing for her, so in return, she has to, they work out in the field, whatever they're doing all day, she has to do chores at home. There's few things which are not so much chores, they're more like terms of endearment. For example, diluting the wine or pouring the wine in his cup, or making his bed, or or washing his hands and face and his feet. That the Yisraelim don't do. Talking about chores that one has to do for someone else, all the chores that a servant does for the master. A student also can do for his teacher. There's one activity that is too demeaning for a student, and that's really just for a servant, that is to undo his shoe. Only in a place where nobody recognizes the student, they'll think, oh, this guy must be a slave, and they'll start calling him a slave. And therefore it will tarnish his reputation. Everyone knows this is a student, and he's doing it out of loyalty, out of subservience to his Rebbe, unless it doesn't matter. I mean, just look at the Gemara, how the Gemara expects a student to have respect for their Rebbe. Rashi says, even a place they don't recognize you. If you weren't wearing tefillin, Avodim did not wear tefillin because Avodim have the same status of a woman. A woman doesn't wear tefillin. Ever doesn't wear tefillin. In fact, if an ever wore tefillin, it might be a sign that he's been emancipated. So Avodim didn't wear tefillin, and in those days, most people used to wear tefillin, or many people used to wear tefillin all day long. But if the student's like one of those who used to wear tefillin all day long, then less won't recognize straight away this guy's not an eved. And therefore, wearing tefillin, he can go ahead and untie his shoe of his head. An interesting halacha. Kol hamoineya. If a Rebbe doesn't want to see his student serving him, so anyone who prevents talmidim milashamshe, anyone who prevents a student from serving him, you are denying that person the ability to do a good thing. Shenemar, but it says in the passage, lamas mereu chesed. That's somebody who humiliates themselves, and if you deny your friend from doing the right thing, is chesed is a terrible thing. You're denying them from doing a chesed. That itself is not a good thing. So if a student wants to serve their rabbi, the rabbi should allow them. What you're also doing is you're taking away from the student Yiras Shamayim. Because it says in Pasuk, in the very same Pasuk, the Yiras Shaka Yazid, and the fear of a God they will leave behind. No, if you don't let them have some kind of a, because we had it before, by giving Rabbi Kiva, Shimon Amsuni used to dash in every S in the Torah. When he came to the S Hashem Lekachatira, Pirish, and in fact he took away all the S, even though his whole lifetime career he was trying to S as something secondary. Every time the Torah used the word S, he learned some kind of a drasha. When he came to the pasuk S Hashem Lekachatira, he didn't know what to say. What's secondary to Hashem? Who else should you fear? So he walked away from everything. Pirish. He walked away from every single shot that he made over a lifetime. And he said, that you should also fear your Rebbe. No, by having murder for your Rebbe, it in fact instills more Yiras Shamayim to you as well. Because why do you have respect for your Rebbe? Because he's teaching you Torah. So therefore, if you're not allowing him to show you that respect, you're taking away Yiras Shamayim from him. Okay, back to Gemara Almona. Rabbi Elazar also says, Almona should tafsa metaltlin b'mezonah. If an Almona goes ahead and seizes, let's say she doesn't trust the children, so she takes a number of portable items as food. Masha tafsa, whatever she grabbed because you don't take it away from her because the truth of the matter, she's entitled to it. Now, even though mezonah generally collects from property, not from portable items, but if she grabbed it, we'll leave it with her. How time we learned Hamana she does metalton as I said, if an Hamana grabbed a hold of metalton for her food, she grabbed. There was a story with a daughter of Shapsi, she grabbed a hold of the Skayim Malayim, a sack full of money, which is portable. He complained that Shasi complained the Chum could not take it away from her because it says Masha Tafsa Tafsa. Even though she's entitled to Karka, she relies on Karka. But if she took metalton, the fact is it's due to her, and she's only using it to pay off her Mazanis, it's all right. There's a difference if she grabbed it for her food provisions or she grabbed it for a ksuva. In both of them, you're relying on property. But the difference, comes to ksuva, we do take it away from her. Now, it's an obvious question, why? Why should there be a difference between a ksuva and mezainis? We'll come back to that in a minute. Ravashi asks a question. Why should it be different? You tell me, whatever she seizes, we take back from her because she's only entitled to property to pay off for ksuva, because she's only entitled to property. When it comes to taking care of her, providing for her, it's only from karka, not from metalton. So I believe Rashi said, just like by Mezayna, whatever she grabbed, Hachinam l'ksuva. If you're going to tell me that when it comes to food, if she grabs it, since she's entitled to it, even though she didn't rely on it, if grabbing is a valid grabbing, the same thing should apply to a ksuva. But Rabbi Yitzchak, the son of Tali, said to Ravina, Hachi amrina mashmei de Rava kavasech. Rava agrees with you. Now what? That not the way Ravashi said, but the way he originally said. There's a difference between mezainis and ksuba. But the Gemara doesn't explain what the difference is. Tosfos explains. It says as follows. The law is that if there's no assets left, she can no longer sustain herself from the food, and that's it. Nothing she can do. She cannot go to any of the purchasers of the property and take the property back in order to have food. But when it comes to ksuba, the din is that any property that was sold after the ksuba, she has a lien on those properties, and therefore she can collect them back. So when it comes to ksuba, because she always has another option to go to, if there's no food left, no assets left, she can always go to the Mishabadim. So her seizure is nothing. What are you taking metalton for? You're not entitled to it, and don't worry about your ksuba, because if you run out of assets in the house, you can go to collect from the purchasers. When it comes to Zaina, she is worried, because if there's no assets left, if it dries up, she can't go to any of the purchasers. So therefore, she wants to grab a hold of metalton to ensure some kind of guarantee that she'll have what to live on to sustain herself. Therefore, we allow her. That's the logic in that. Telling about it further. If an almona, she waited 2 or 3 years, she did not go ahead and ask for her food. If the mezainis, she forfeits her rights to get any food. Now he said 2 or 3 years, which obviously is a problem, because if 2 years went by and she forfeits her rights, then what do you have to tell me 3 years for? She already forfeited it. So when I asked her time, now that she lost the forfeited rights after 2 years, 3 you have to tell me. So like kasha. Talking about 2 different people. A poor person cannot exist 2 years. A poor person cannot exist 2 years without living. So if 2 years went by and she didn't ask for her food, that means she found another source. But a rich person can live. She has her own funds. So therefore, for a rich person, it's up to 3 years. Or someone who is very an extrovert and somebody who's very modest. Someone who's modest, she's scared to say anything. So 2 years, she sort of put up with it. But 3 years, must be she has forgotten it. But somebody's a prutza who has no problem in speaking her mind. If after 2 years she said nothing, it means she forgave it. Even these people who are meichel, talking about the past. Doesn't matter what, even though she was meichel for the last 2 years, if she did not collect the ksuba yet, after 2 years or after 3 years, she can say, okay, I want to now come back home and eat and be provided for, because she has that right. That's a question. What happens? Yisayim, the Sanunu, the Yisayim say, we already gave you food. I did not receive. Who has to prove what? Rashi learns we're talking about the future. Tay says, of course, we're not talking about the future. Why would you even think for a minute that the same already gave? They have to prove they gave. We're talking about the past. She didn't collect food for the last year, or she said she didn't, and they said, we gave you. Who do we believe? The question is it the woman's assets, and therefore the children said they gave, they have to prove it? Or is it the children's assets? Why is it the woman's assets? Is because there's a shibud. The husband has a commitment to take care of his wife, even though he's dead now. He has a commitment. Therefore, it's as if it's her assets already. And the Yisraelim say, "We already paid you." They have to prove that they did that, or the other way around. It's the same as assets that they have to provide for her. So therefore, she has to prove that she didn't receive it. Who has to bring a proof? Do we say the assets are in the control of the Yisraelim, and therefore, if she says I did not receive anything, she's the one who's trying to extract from them. The onus of proof is on them. There's been witnesses or something that how can she prove it? She has to bring witnesses that the Yisraelim told them we haven't got, we got away with it. We didn't have to give her any food or something to that effect. Without that, she can't collect anything. Or maybe another way around. There's a lien, there's a shibud, there's a commitment from the husband, as if it's all hers, and therefore, or a commitment could Bezdin impose this commitment, and therefore they have to prove that they already gave it. Toshma coming here. Tony Levi learned Almona Kozman Shalay Nisas. He said, it says, Levi said the Braisa, Almana, as long as she did not get married, in other words, she's totally entitled to provisions there, and Al Hayyisayim Lahabirai, as if it's hers, and they have to prove that they actually gave her. Nisas, once she got married, and now she's coming to the man, not the future food, because once she's married, they're no longer obligated to pay her, but for the past years that they didn't give her, and Allah, she has to be approved. Because why? Because once she got married, the assets are no longer in her control, they're now in the control of the Yisraelim. She wants to extract from them about the past, so therefore she needs to bring proof. Omar Rashi, you brought up Bryce, that's very nice, but I'll tell you, it's actually a machlekes tanaim. Where? Because it says, if the woman decides to sell fields in order to turn it into money, there's two possible reasons why a woman is selling the fields. Either to pay out her ksuvah, or to turn it into money to buy food, mezainis. Now, even if she partially paid down her ksuvah, as long as her entire ksuvah wasn't paid out, she's entitled to get mezainis. The moment she paid out her entire ksuvah, she's not entitled to get mezainis. So she's selling properties. Now, we don't know what she's selling the properties for. Is it to turn into cash to buy mezainis, or is it selling the properties in order to pay out her ksuvah? So it says, and she has to write, she needs to write which field she sold for the ksuvah and which field she wrote for the mezainis. She has to incorporate that in the shtar itself. Now we don't know yet why. David Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi says, she sells the properties, does not have to incorporate in the document what she sold the thing for. She just tells them later what it was. And she is the one that is more powerful. She's in control. What exactly that means? What we'll soon explain. So what's going on here? My lab, why does Peter say it's a document? What she's selling it for? And Rabbi Yossi says you don't have to. My lab, this is the base of the argument. Rabbi Yehuda said they have to explicitly write what you're selling it for. The e-holes and the that the assets are considered the same, and she's the one who's extracting it. She's the one who has to prove it. Then, if she doesn't write down, record in the shtar what you sold it for, they'll tell her, you know what, everything you sold it for your ksuvah, so you've paid out. Get out of here. We're not going to give you any more mezainis. And if she says now, okay, granted, it's no longer my ksuvah is paid out, but I'm not asking for future mezainis. You owe me mezainis from before. They said no. They'll say, since now we're in control, you prove that we haven't given you metalton, or we haven't given you other things, cash, to buy food. And they'll be believed. Therefore, for her own benefit, she should write down in the shtar if she sold it for ksuvah. Maybe she sold the mezainis. Therefore, the Yisraelim can't say that we're all sold to you as a ksuvah, and you have no longer have any rights to the field. And Rabbi Yossi holds loy by through Shariah, so it doesn't have to, because she's in total control. She's in control. She can then later say, tell them whatever it is. She can tell them, no, I sold the mezainis, my ksuvah is still intact, or partially only paid, and you still owe me. And then she says, you didn't pay me last year because I didn't have property. I just sold the property now. Last year, where did I get money from? And even though the Yisraelim said, but we gave you cash, you have to prove you gave me cash. That's what the Gemara is trying to say. So maybe that's the argument here. No proof. You're telling me this is the machlekes of Rabbi Yossi. I can learn the machlekes another way. Maybe everyone holds that the chasim belong to the almana. And the Yisraelim have to bring a proof. So why does Rabbi Yehuda recommend, or why does Rabbi Yehuda insist that she has to incorporate in the document what she sold the properties for? Rabbi Yehuda ate a Torah commercial. In fact, he's just giving a good advice. On what basis? If she doesn't write that she sold all of these properties in order to pay out a ksuba, people look around. She sold the properties. They're automatically going to assume she's living in a house. She's probably doing it to sell it for food to live on. And look how much she sold. So many properties. She must be a ravon, a glutton, that she needs so much money to sustain herself and have such a big diet. Who's going to want to marry such a woman, who is what do you call, high maintenance? Nobody's interested. So for her own good, if you're going to sell some of it for ksuba, write down for ksuba so people won't be, murmuring about you. The leilitra rabasuna shouldn't call you a glutton. We didn't talk, if not that, I'll prove you. This is what Rabbi Yechanan's question was. Who has to prove what? Tiv shalem maslisin. Learn from the Mishnah later on where it says she can sell fields without even, usually you have to get a bezin involved because this is, you're forcing the assignment to sell the field. Here she can sell without even a bezin, the Kesuvos, and then she writes that Elu lemezainis mocharti, that she should write, I sold the mezainis. Now, Rabbi Yechanan, when he asked this question, wasn't aware of this brisa. The argument of Rabbi Yossi, fine, fair enough. But there's a Mishnah, and the next Mishnah clearly says that when she sells the mezainis without the bezdin's knowledge, she has to record in the shtar why she wrote it the mezainis. So Rabbi Yechon should have said, she has to write down she's doing it mezainis, so that otherwise the Yisraelim are going to say that it was everything you sold to Kesuvos, you're no longer involved, it's ours now. So he would have resolved his own question. He can't prove anything. You know why? The reason why we're writing in the shtar, why you sold it, it's only good advice. Because otherwise, from this mission, it's clear that the almana has to bring proof. If she doesn't write down what it's for, they're going to say it was sold for your ksuba, and she has no standing unless she proves otherwise. Which means that the Yisraelim are the ones who own the assets, and they can say whatever they want. So Rabbi Yechanan's question was resolved. Other than the fact that Rabbi Yechan will say that mission is purely giving good advice, that people shouldn't walk around saying, look how many fields she sold to provide for herself food. She's a high maintenance woman. Who's going to want to marry somebody who can afford to marry someone like her? That's one way of looking at it. Or actually, the other way around. Everyone holds that the Nechasim are in the state of the Yisraelim. And so, if everyone holds the state of the Yisraelim, why does Rabbi Yossi say you don't have to bother writing down? She should write down to protect herself. Otherwise, the Yisraelim will say, everything is sold to you're no longer involved. Because he holds like the Abai, the old one. Nobody Abai Shisha. Two days in a row we have Abai Shisha. Abai, the old one, said, Moshe Rabbi Yossi, you know what we compare Rabbi Yossi case to? Somebody who's dying, he said, he said, give $200 to this lender of mine. He didn't say pay back the loan. He said give, which is a matana. Now, he owes $200 to the lender, and he said give a matana to the lender. He could take the $200 and say, I'm taking this as a gift. You still owe me the $200. Or you can say, this is my loan, now you still owe me $200. If he takes the $200 and this was a gift, so if it is a gift, it's much better for him. Why is it much better for him? Because if there's no assets left in the person who died, estate, that's it. He'll never get his money. But if he takes the money as a gift and he still has an outstanding loan, then he can go to every single purchaser and take back his property that they owe him. And so the same thing here. Rabbi Yossi says she shouldn't write down what it's for, so that if they run out of assets, she can say, well, all the properties I sold was from mezainis, you still owe me for the Kesuvos, and the Kesuvos entitles me to go to all the purchasers and collect it. So for her benefit, she should not write down for Kesuvos, because the moment she writes down for Kesuvos, and now you still owe me for mezainis, if they run out of money, she's stuck. She has nowhere to go. That's why he advises her, even though it's up to them, they can say whatever they want. They can say you're no longer involved, whatever. But she said, fine, you still owe me for the Kesuvos some money. Let's go to the buyers. And therefore she can say, I did it for mezainis. So it's better leave the options open. Further, just almost finishing Gemara. Kate said, how often does she sell? How does it work? Once every 12 months, she sells a property in order to sustain herself for the year. And but the person who bought it should not give her the money in a lump sum, because then she'll spend it and run out after 5 months. Pays her monthly, you break it down into 12 payments and give her a monthly payment. And this way she can live for 12 months. We're guaranteed she'll live for 12 months. And if she gets married in the middle, then the rest of the money goes to the assignment. However, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you sell a property every 6 months, you sell smaller parcels of land, and the care pays them every month, because a year is a long time, and she might get married, and things will change, it gets complicated. 6 months, chances are that she's not going to get married so quickly. She's not seeing anybody yet. Chances are she's not going to be married within 6 months. Tanya Kavasid Rabbi Yehuda, we look at the price like Rabbi Yehuda, and we look at the price like Rabbi Yehuda. She sells every property to make it easier. It's a big deal to sell every 6 months a parcel of land. She sells once a year. The buyer pays her a monthly stipend, or it breaks in 12 months. And Tanya goes to the other place, the Brisa says 6 months. After 130 days. Amar Ma'amim says the halach is hilchasa. Sells the property every 6 months, and the buyer then pays her out every month. What about Rav Huna? Rav Huna clearly says you sell only a property once every 12 months. I haven't heard it. Claim it, I heard it, but I don't agree with him. It's better to sell it every 6 months. It's safer that way. So if she gets married, there's no real complications. Okay, we'll stop over here.